I've got Todd Shapiro, who's our legal analyst for the day, and Rebecca Lopez, our senior crime and justice reporter. Todd, we had some really compelling testimony this morning. What really sticks out to you from what you heard?
Well, first of all, it's just from a human perspective and not a legal perspective. It's heartbreaking to listen to. We all, have kids or nieces or nephews or children, and we all know teachers, and just from a human standpoint, trying to put yourself in their position and going through this is just, it's horrific, it's tragic. And I can understand why each one of these witnesses are having such a difficult time testifying with what they saw and what they heard. It seems like the state is trying to call each of the teachers, I guess, that was at the school on that day for their individual perspective. It doesn't sound like a lot of the stuff they saw and heard was very different, just from different angles and different sight lines and things along those lines. But I still, in this morning's testimony, haven't quite heard yet why this particular individual that's on trial is guilty for any of the stuff that they're talking about from the witness stand.
Yeah.
In fact, they're saying, they pointed out with this last teacher that he drove up onto the campus, and there were other officers that didn't.
Right. It's kind of hard to differentiate the two because we're here for the trial for this officer, yet all we're talking about is the shooter and the actions taken by at least this morning, the teachers and the kids and how they were affected, impacted, and the stress they were under. But we really haven't gotten to anything that says, okay, this is why this officer is guilty of this crime.
And I think it's interesting that the defense has done a good job of, unfortunately, the teachers, they didn't lock their door. This could have been prevented. They did question those teachers. It was difficult. And I feel like Nico LaHood has been compassionate towards the witnesses, but still asking them some tough questions like, do you always lock your door? Why wasn't your door locked? Were you given a magnet? Those sort of things.
How important do you think the issue of the door locks and the fact that these teachers are, being given magnets by the school, how much do you think that will play into the jury's analysis of this case?
I can see where they're going with that from a defense standpoint is this, the school system, the school district should be held as accountable as this officer, but for that east door being open, none of this would have happened. The officer didn't create the situation. He didn't create the environment. He simply reacted. Now we're second guessing his actions, of course. But if he's responsible for endangering these children, why is the school district or the individual that didn't? Do we know who did not lock the east door? I think that's a pretty big piece. Is how retracing. Okay, at 9 a.m. all the doors were locked. Somehow at 11:30, the east door was not, or at 11:15, whenever he made entry into the school. Why is that question not been asked? Maybe it has prior to now, or maybe it's coming. But from a defense standpoint, I'd want to try to lay some blame around, right? Try to spread. Okay, our guy might have done not what he was trained to do, and the stress of the moment, et cetera. But there were other contributing factors by so many different individuals that caused this tragedy to happen.
And from what you've seen, how effective a job do you think they are doing at that?
I think the defense is doing a masterful job. I like the personalization of the witnesses. I think that they're connecting to them on a certain level, even though they're cross-examining them, which is a really difficult thing to do. Especially in situations like this, and kind of reminds me of cross-examining a child complaining in a sex case where they're trying to get their points across and establish things, but in a very softer, kinder manner, as opposed to the normal, cross-examination that's somewhat confrontational.
And I think one of the things that I've seen in the comments from the viewers is the demeanor of the prosecutor, because we actually noticed that also in when we were in Corpus Christi. A lot of the media was saying the same thing. It seems so detached at times, and I'm wondering if we're noticing that. Does the jury notice that? The jury notice that pass the witness, and not like thank you for your time, and I'm sorry.
God bless you. God bless your family. God bless your children. We're all humans in this courtroom. It's a very emotional case, and for the prosecutor to be somewhat so robotic about their delivery, at least from what we've watched this morning, I can see that being a turnoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we also hear, the defense going out of their way to be kind and say, sorry for what happened to you. And the one teacher, so glad, it's amazing that you're back teaching.
Yeah.
It's such a difference in almost like bedside manner between the two sides.
Well, and the families have noticed that. The families told us when we were in Corpus Christi, at least some of the families that were there, not all the families wanted to go through this process or be there, but the families that were there felt like this prosecutor has not even tried to really get to know them, has been difficult to deal with when it comes to answering families' questions. And I get it. Sometimes you have to protect the case and you're not wanting to always talk to the witnesses or the families, but at the same time, the families feel like this prosecution is lacking in compassion towards them as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that will play at all into the jury's, connection with the prosecutors? Because they're the ones, they have the burden. They have to make the case here.
I think to a certain extent, but once again, the lawyers aren't the ones that are on trial, and ultimately, I think jurors do a good job of recognizing that there are good lawyers and bad lawyers, and they may, think one side is more polished than the other. But at the end of the day, when they're deliberating, is that going to be at the forefront of their minds when they're talking about whether or not to hold this individual accountable and find him guilty of the crime? It could just add to maybe just the overall tone and feeling. I just didn't really like the prosecution's presentation. Certainly, it could have an impact. There's no doubt about it.
When I was in the courtroom, I watched some of the jury, and they were wiping away tears during some of the more emotional times. Are the lawyers paying attention to that as well? Are they worried if the jury is getting emotional during some of this, or what do you think?
I mean, again, you were in there. You said you watched their emotion. I mean, obviously I can't see that from the screen, but I would think that would have an impact. Yeah.
So we've spent the morning with a lot of really emotional testimony. Teachers describing what they saw and did as this massacre begins. Where would you go if you were the prosecutor on this case? Where do you go next?
Well, I think that we've got to retrace the steps of this officer very, very specifically. Timeline-wise, when did he arrive? When did the call go out? When did he arrive? When did he make entry into the school? When did he walk down that hallway? What steps should have been taken that weren't taken to show that he is negligent in the protection he provided for these children? So, I don't disagree with this tactic of bringing in every teacher and getting emotional and all the things that they're doing. But at some point, we have to lay the blame at the person that is charged with the crime here, as opposed to, continually looking at the different. And again, that may be coming, and they're probably taking their time and covering every base. It'd be one of those things like they call 5 teachers, but not the 6th, or whatever it may be. And then the jury after the fact says, well, we sure would have loved to have heard from that 6th teacher. I mean, why did y'all not bring him as a witness? What would he have said that might have hurt your case? So they're being extremely thorough, to almost, I don't want to say to a fault, but very thorough, very purposefully, I believe.